No, I've checked all the circuits right the way back, Marina. It's definitely a genuine selection, so I think we're probably stuck with it. Oh, hello everyone. Well, I'm afraid it's not good news today. You see, we've already made the selection, and unfortunately, it's another clip show episode. Yes, I know. And there's no way to really sugarcoat that in a particularly entertaining introduction, beyond giving you all a chance to guess which one it might be, I suppose. Well, here goes. Could it be The Birthday from Joe 90? Might it be Mars Monsters from Terrorhawks? Or could it be...
Nobody expects the Inquisition!
Well, they might now.
I know! I didn't want to say anything. I just wanted to try and ignore your crass mistake.
It's not my mistake. The randomizer made the choice.
It makes it all seem so stupid.
Yes, I know, but still, considering recent events, it would be really nice to hear Terry Jones introduce this one. Can we do that?
I couldn't do that.
Oh, go on, please.
Nobody, expects. Nobody expects the Inquisition. In fact, those who do...
Stop there.
Yeah, look, why don't you just tell our listeners what they can expect from this episode?
Such diverse elements as fear, surprise...
It is a clip show, remember?
Oh, God, just pretend, for God's sake!
Okay, yeah, well, here's Captain Scarlet.
Nice red uniform. Oh, damn.
Leading the fight, one man fate has made indestructible. His name, Captain Scarlet.
Well, as I said in the randomizer for Implicado, we've got to get through all those Protectors episodes, and we also have to get through a fair few clip show episodes. I think we've done one of these before on the randomizer, which was... Anyway, we're opening with a scene in a restaurant. Lots of puppets around here. Captain Blue and Scarlet are...
Did you enjoy the meal, sir?
Having a meal.
Yes, it was fine, thanks. Will there be anything else?
Nothing for me.
Just coffee, please. Black.
We don't know what the context for this meal is, but I am actually recording this on Valentine's Day, so I'm going to assume it's a Valentine's Day treat for one or other of them who's been stood up by whichever of the angels they're dating this week. And we're getting a lot of footage of this guy playing the piano being watched by the Robert Mitchum puppet.
Good pianist.
Very relaxing.
Because that's what you want the opening of a Jerry Anderson episode to be, nice and relaxing and sleep-inducing. We don't want any of this action stuff. Ooh.
I don't
Blue
know.
raised his hand to his head there.
Kind of strange.
Brief appearance of what looked like a puppeteer's thumb holding the arm in place. Always fun to spot things like that. Yeah, poor old Captain Blue's feeling a little bit under the weather. Presumably it was the coffee. And now we have a very odd situation where Scarlet's gone to get their coats.
Adam?
Which, incidentally, are their winter gear coats from Shadow of Fear. But Blue's gone. Somehow. In the space of about 3 seconds, he's just disappeared. Very mysterious, and nobody seems to have reacted to that. How did they get him out of there? Obviously, this is the Mysterons at work, but how did they manage to get him out of the restaurant with nobody making a fuss at all?
The members of Spectrum.
Were all the staff and the diners Mysterons? That's the only way I can make any of it make sense. Oh dear. Anyway, so, Traitor in Spectrum. We have been here before, though. I think there was a little episode called Traitor. That was the Traitor in Spectrum. And as with whichever episode it was was Security Hazard, wasn't it? That was the first flashback episode we did. I am going to try not to talk over the flashback segments of episodes we haven't seen yet, which in this episode is 2 out of 3. We've seen one of them, which was Big Ben Strikes Again. We haven't yet seen the other 2.
Don't you know?
Yes. In cloud-based control.
So here's Blue, still in his dinner gear,
Spectrum Intelligence.
being interrogated by this
Who are you?
this man who claims to be Spectrum Intelligence. But we all know him better as Sam Loover from Joe 90, and I believe this puppet, although
I've been here, on duty.
the Sam Loover head was sculpted for Captain Scarlet, I think maybe the first appearance was the SHEF commander guy in .783.
And what are you doing here?
I think this is a new sculpt that was created for Joe 90
Prove it?
that was used in this episode, while the new Sam Loover puppet was
Telling you.
oh no, this is a new Sam Loover puppet, and the old Sam Loover head, the SHEF commander, was being used on the Joe 90 set at the time because they were filming the first episode of Joe 90 while they're filming this.
Than anyone. I know everyone on Spectrum.
Isn't that interesting? Aren't you glad you know that? Doesn't that just point to the lack of interesting stuff I have to say about this episode?
Right, if this is some sort of game, I'll play along. Spectrum's job is to counter the Mysterons. One of our first assignments was to try and save the city of London.
Splendid. Tell me more.
Well, we failed.
Mysterons had threatened to destroy it.
Here we go. Big Ben strikes again. This is one we've already seen, so I can talk about this. Now, I first saw this episode, as is the case for most of the Jerry Hansen shows, I've mentioned this before, on the BBC Two repeat runs in the 90s. But the BBC, for some reason, decided not to show this episode the first time they showed Captain Scarlet. They showed up to Attack on Cloud Base and then stopped. I guess somebody thought this one
Atomic bomb.
just wasn't worth bothering with. But then they repeated the show the following year, and
What's the difference?
they started with this episode and then ran through the whole series again. So we had a run of 33 episodes, not 32, from the Inquisition, going all the way through the series and ending with the Inquisition again. I'd be interested to know why they held back one episode. I know the BBC repeats were always a bit of a sort of... They always started strongly and then they sort of just kind of tailed off. I think their first run of Stingray, they ended with about 10 episodes unshown, and then they bumped them to... I think Sunday lunchtimes they ended up being shown. Obviously UFO and Space 1999 were something of a disaster, and Joe 90 got bumped to Saturday mornings. I just don't know why they would show all the episodes of Captain Scarlet except this one, unless somebody at the BBC just thought, why does anyone need to see this? They've seen all these episodes already. It's still nice to see this sequence from Big Ben Strikes Again. It's very exciting still. And I'm still... Oh, that's right. Yes, I was... last time we were here, I was geeking out over all these store names.
He's going too fast. He's not going to make that next turn.
And here we have, of course, Captain Blue is relating these events to the Spectrum Intelligence guy. Obviously, this is all stuff that he wasn't around to be witness to, which I always find fascinating in clip shows, and I think it happens again later in this one. What is Blue saying to the guy? And then the truck driver buried his head in his hands. The truck kept on going, and then it turned right. Although I suppose, actually we can get some insight into how Captain Blue might describe this, because this episode is one of the ones that were narrated by Ed Bishop in 1993, which you can now find on the Captain Scarlet 50th anniversary set from Big Finish. I mean, I'm making excuses for a clip show. It's all I can really do at this point. And it's a shame as well, because I kind of like the basic idea of the abandoned cloud base, seemingly abandoned cloud base, and Blue having to prove his identity. I think there's a core of something there more interesting than this clip show, which ultimately, in this segment...
The situation was explosive. An atomic bomb had vanished somewhere in the city of London. The whole of Spectrum was put on red alert.
Very interesting. But so far...
Right, so Blue just stops telling the story there. The guy says, yeah, well, that's interesting, but,
signal was used for the red alert.
You're from Spectrum Intelligence. You know I can't tell you that.
So no evidence of his own involvement with the case. No recollection of how the case was resolved.
I'm Adam Svensson, Captain Blue.
Yes, that is Captain Blue's real name.
Although I've got two here. There's a CGI one as well.
What do you know about them?
Yeah, I don't feel that many of the clips seen in this episode were
from this file
particularly well chosen.
On the assignment to destroy the Mysteron complex on the moon.
This is a good choice because it's something really strange and really out of the ordinary, and it's also something that Blue was involved in.
About it.
Big Ben Strikes Again.
What harm can it do?
Obviously he was there to resolve it, but he wasn't there for that whole sequence that he narrated.
We had till midnight to investigate the Mysteron complex and get clear before it was blown to pieces.
Captain Scarlet is below the lunar horizon. You cannot contact him. He will die in Crater 101.
Oh, and there was a little moment there after we came back from the advert break. You just get a scene as we do that bomb back to the action of Crater 101. You get a shot of Green working on the Moonbill, and then suddenly you're seeing the lunar tank. And I was expecting when this came out on Blu-ray that would be fixed, if I can make enough air quotes to do that word justice, but I'm very glad it wasn't, because I like seeing little things like that in there. I've never been a huge fan of fixes or corrections. It's like, no, it was there at the time, and
Are you sure, Controller?
obviously it wasn't meant to be, but nobody who
The detonator for 10 of
didn't work on that show has any right to come along later and say, actually, we're going to fix that.
No, he's out.
It's just such a bugbear of mine. It really irritates me.
Fast enough to get there before that bomb explodes.
An unmanned rocket. Could it work?
This is it. The power source.
And I'm sure kids in the 60s would have liked seeing, in particular, this episode again. It does make me wonder the selection process that went into choosing these clips, because I noticed that, at least I think this is right, Tony Barwick wrote this one. He also wrote this episode, I think, and Big Ben Strikes Again. The only one in this episode that he didn't write was the next clip segment, which will be the trap. I just wonder if he was drawing on, like, I like that episode of mine and I like this episode of mine. Or if he consulted with anyone to say, what do we think would be the best choice of episodes to fit in these?
What was that? I don't know. I'll go and find out.
And here we come to although I said this is a really good choice for a segment in a clip show episode, if you absolutely have to do a clip show.
Unmanned space.
Here's an odd
old CB-29
section of this particular flashback.
6. But why an obsolete CB-29? Unless...
Maybe it's some kind of message.
Or a warning?
The Lucky Charm. Now, what was it?
Captain Scarlet,
Yes, Miss Nolan?
I'd like you to take this. It's a lucky charm. I'm not really superstitious, but please take it.
To Linda Nolan. The CB-29 Neptune probe, July 10th, 2058.
We made it. Ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we have to have a flashback inserted into the flashback segment in order to make sense of what's going on here. And, it works, but I just find it strange that you pick an episode where that's necessary.
SIG.
I don't think that's like a point against using Crater 101 in a clip show, because it is suitably eerie and alien. Obviously, it looks much better in full HD colour than it would have done on a little black and white TV set back in the 60s. But even so, it's a good choice.
I'm right, Adam. Do as I say.
Spectrum is green. Captain Scarlet just escaped, and the Mysteron complex was completely destroyed.
This mission was fully reported in the newspapers and on TV. Anyone with a little imagination could have told that story.
Why did you tell that story on TV?
Possibly.
That, of all the things Spectrum had done, infiltrating the Mysteron complex on the moon, that would seem to be the most...
Have to do to convince you.
...security-worthy incident they were ever involved with. And yet, we'll tell everyone. Put it on TV.
If you are Captain Blue, it shouldn't be so difficult to prove it.
Wait a minute. This should prove my identity beyond all reasonable doubt. There was a conference at Glencarry Castle.
A conference in Scotland?
To the press. But as it is only Class C security, I'll tell you.
Oh, that's interesting. Go on.
And a conference that Captain Blue wasn't even directly involved with.
Delegates to the conference.
To begin with, because Colonel White, in his wisdom, assigned only one person to deal with security for the conference. And I do like... I said I like the setup of Blue alone on Cloudbase being interrogated by someone. I also like the fact that it is Blue. It's not Scarlet who gets to star in this final episode. And it is really nice dynamic between him and David Healy. And Scarlet's in Glengarry Castle. I think we saw one of these suits of armour next to the pianist in the restaurant where they were dining at the beginning. It's more fascinating facts, because I'm so hard up for material to talk about here.
Tomorrow morning, on the stroke of 10, here in this room, the entire Supreme Command of the World Air Force will be wiped out.
So, Captain, tell me how this proves your identity beyond all reasonable doubt.
Take up your position in the hall.
I just don't get it. And we also... We've got Scarlet strapped to a chair. Remember, he was later moved down to the dungeon with Symphony, and there was a whole painfully long sequence of them having to escape. But here, somehow, off-screen, he just escapes, and he's here to kill everybody. Again...
What's the matter?
I think maybe they spent too long on Crater 101. They didn't give themselves enough time to adequately set up this one. And here's Blue for his minimal involvement with this story, which was to turn up in an SPV basically after everything had already fallen apart.
This is Captain Blue.
See, that proves my identity beyond all reasonable doubt.
Captain Scarlet. The Magnacopter's pinned down.
I know.
And again, Blue said that this story was never released to the press, which... I don't even want to know about how the world of the press in Captain Scarlet works. The press in our own world is silly, but why was the Lunar Complex mission fully documented all over the place, but this one, I mean, surely the destruction of Glengarry Castle would have at least merited a tiny little box in the local paper at the very least.
Jordan!
Lots of important delegates and the destruction of a piece of Scottish history with the destruction of this castle, but no, apparently they thought nobody was interested in this little adventure.
The Magnacopter's clear. Let him have it.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I expect. How else I would have done this setup of Blue and this guy interrogating each other, but I think there was the potential for something a bit prisonery, maybe, to be going on here, instead of just the clips.
Flown off to safety. The Mysterons had failed.
Thus proving my identity.
Interesting incident, but it doesn't convince me you are Captain Blue.
Oh no. Tell him about that time you went to Australia.
Tell me the Spectrum cipher code. Prove to me you are Captain Blue.
And again, I don't think they establish what the cipher code really is, what the importance of this is.
There is a likeness, but plastic surgery can work wonders.
Spectrum have never really been all that on the ball regarding security.
Fingerprints. Check my fingerprints.
Captain Magenta has probably auctioned off his cipher codes on eBay for a bottle of Tizer or something.
I've had enough. I'm getting out of here.
So Blue has finally twigged that something's not right here. And here's a Mysteron man with a syringe and a gun. Ooh, syringe of purple stuff. Don't want a syringe of purple stuff.
The hypodermic contains XK.
So what's Blue going to do? Well, he's going to take the only way out he thinks he's got left.
Go take a walk.
He's edging towards that observation tube. Because he would rather die than give over these precious codes. And he's going to do it. Out the window. And the episode just fell apart. I'm sorry, this scene, I don't know what it is. I think it's the fact that you clearly see the puppeteer's hand shoving the puppet through the window.
Get clear, Captain Blue.
And that you see him land on what is presumably the real backdrop of the cloud-based windows. Then you get the obvious little model Captain Blue. Then you cut back to the puppet just sat there sort of blankly staring, as if he's like broken the reality of his own universe. I genuinely, the first time I saw this, I thought I was seeing a puppet realising that he was a puppet in a television series. It's only for a moment, but it's so disorienting.
Fine. Were they Mysteron agents?
Yes. It took us a few hours to locate you, but I'm glad we were in time.
How did you locate him? How did you get onto this?
Madam, you can tell me all about it. back on the real cloud base.
And how did he know that there was a fake cloud base in that warehouse? Scarlet was in on it too. He was in on it the whole time. Now Blue has to go on the run, never knowing who he can trust, never knowing who his real allies are. Or it was just a rushed, kind of clumsy ending to the episode. And indeed, the series as a whole, I believe this was the last episode made and is generally the last episode shown. And in both instances, it's just like a big pile of so what, which I know a lot of the Anderson clip shows are, but for Captain Scarlet, you really, I think more than any other show, maybe Space 1999 as well, you really want to see an ending, something resolved one way or another, regarding the war with the Mysterons, and it's just, no, we're not gonna deal with any of that, which is why I, even though we haven't covered that episode on the Randomiser yet, I generally tend to think sort of Attack on Cloudbase is the real series finale, and I just sort of stick my fingers in my ears at the it was all a dream ending, because even though everybody died in Attack on Cloudbase, it's far more satisfying an ending to the whole series than this just mediocre clip show. You know, a good framing device potentially could have led to something great, but sadly didn't.